have a first installment of the Visionary Sip, where I have an opportunity to sit down with a visionary carving their own path in their own lane. I'm super excited and can't wait for you to learn more about Mr. B. Jawuan Jones, founder and CEO of Haircutz4Homeless. Hello, sippers, and welcome to the Set Podcast, where we sip, eat, talk. I'm your host, Gina. If you are part of this community, you are called a sipper. As you know, my motto goes, whether you are drinking a mocktail, a cocktail, your favorite wine, energy drink, coffee, or tea, you are sipping in with me, and I am happy to have you. Remember, you can listen to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Amazon Music. You can also check us out at our YouTube page at Sip Eat Talk Podcast, and also find us on Instagram at Sip Eat Talk Podcast. Of course, every episode it's time to sip in. I like to share what I am eating and sipping on for the episode. Right now it's about 10:30 in the morning. So I'm a coffee drinker and a tea drinker that loves a good bread or a muffin, something to go with my tea or coffee. So I cheated a little bit because I'm not a baker, but I'm someone who likes to doctor things up. Pillsbury has banana bread mix in the box. Yes, in the box. Don't judge me. And I did that recipe today, but of course I added a Granny Smith apple to it and some walnuts and a few other things. You can find the recipe on YouTube. I'll be sure to include it in the description. That is what I am eating on for this episode. It's not me if you don't get a good dance with that first bite. If you do try it, hit me up on YouTube in the comments and let me know, or post your dish and let me know how it comes out. And I just really appreciate my family and friends. You know that I'm taking on this endeavor, and you guys have been sending me gifts of glasses because you know I love wine, and also coffee mugs, tea mugs. And so today I am sipping on my go-to tea that I like to make. It is a green tea that I make with fresh ginger and lemon and raw honey. And I am sipping out of it today in this beautiful coffee mug that my sister sent me that says, "You're doing great, sweetie," with some round of applause of hands down at the bottom. And so thank you, big sis. I appreciate you. Nice and warm. Get to know me. The conversations I've had with strangers on a plane, standing in line with someone at a store, or even just with my friends, family members. Some of my mentees have been really life-changing. The amount of information you get, the encouragement you get just at the right time, it means so much. So I'm glad to have you here. Join me in the cheers as we get into our first visionary sip with Mr. B. Jawuan Jones of Haircutz4Homeless. Cheers. Good. I appreciate you taking your time sharing it.
Absolutely.
Let's just wrap and get to know one another first. From my research, you're from Chester, born and raised?
Yeah, from Chester, yeah.
So what was the transition from Chester to Philly?
So I went from Chester to Delaware to Philly.
Okay. Was it always barbering when you were in Philly?
When I moved to Philly, it was always barber. Well, I stopped barbering for a minute. And
Okay.
I started working like a regular 9-to-5 job.
What was the 9-to-5 job? What kind of work?
I was working at a custom suit store where we make suits and do like styling and for proms and weddings and things of that nature.
So tell me the story about that day. You're working that job, and
one day I came home. I told my wife, "Listen, a million homeless people downtown. I want to do something to give back, or to, just to make their day or something like that." But I know that most organizations feed them or provide clothes, so I was just trying to think of what I could do outside the box. I'm really like a outside the box overthinker. It was her who was like,
hence visionary sipping while you're here.
So she's like, you got this bag of clippers that you never use. Why don't you go and cut somebody's hair? And at first I was like, absolutely not, because I really didn't know how to approach. I didn't know how the vibe was going to be, and so I'm
shout your wife's name out so she gets her credit right now.
Shout out to Ty, man. Shout out to Ty. She is Haircutz4Homeless. I'm just the face, but she everything else. So
all right, we love it.
that ain't gonna work. One, the whole hands-on thing, cause I still had that mentality, like, they homeless. I don't know how clean they are.
Right.
It might be a little crazy, all that stuff. What most people think. Um, and after a while, I just sat and I thought about it. I thought about it, and we was coming close to Martin Luther King Day, so I'm like, I'm gonna just do a day of service. Wherever it happens, I'm gonna take my clippers. I'm gonna go downtown. I'll take some sandwiches, and whatever happens, happens. So
Okay. But still working at the time.
still working at the spot.
Okay.
So I just happened to have off. I think I was off like Mondays and Wednesdays, something like that.
Okay.
So um, we went down. We rolled around for a little bit. We asked a couple people if they said no, we'll just give them like a sandwich or whatever we had. But we found this one guy, and he just so happened to be right on the corner of 15th and Walnut. So
Okay.
he in the middle of everything. It's like the Apple store, it's Cheesecake Factory. Like, and the weird part about this day was it was in the middle of January, and for some reason it was like 62 degrees. So
Mm.
and
I
coming
love
up,
it.
and
I
it was
love
like,
it. Preparation is what people would
yeah,
call
like
it.
that was nothing but God.
Yes.
So we approached this guy. I talked to him for a little bit. Before I even asked him about the haircut thing, I just, kind of struck a little conversation. And my name is Brennan. His name was Braden. So we had that little BR
Wow.
connection.
Okay.
And at the time, I think I was 28. He was 28. So we just connected. It was so
All
crazy.
right.
So after I made him feel a little comfortable, I'm like, hey, man, would you want to get a haircut if, we could? It was like, absolutely. I was like, well, I got some clippers in the car. It's like, all right, let's do it. And at that moment, instantly everything changed. Like, instantly.
So at that, because I in my introduction of you when I'm talking, I talk about it. If you're from Philly or been in Philly, if you visited Philly and you've been down Broad Street, you have seen this brother
Yeah.
at Broad and Walnut. So on that day, were you actually in the median that separates the different
No.
sides, or were you on the sidewalk?
So no, I was on that particular day. I was on the sidewalk. This was 2017. I didn't come up with the whole median thing until maybe like 2019. I
Okay.
bounced around a little bit, but I always was just in the city. So I started where I cut braiding. I would just revisit that area for a few months until most businesses start kicking me off the corners, like, hey, he's drawing too much attention. And then
And I'm going to get to that because I know a story of when a police officer actually unfortunately tried to shut you down. But
yeah,
take us back to the 2 million views overnight. What's the story behind it? How soon into the process was that the haircut for Brendan, or was that someone else?
no, that was his haircut. So I'm cutting his hair, and now it's like a line forming. Other people walking by, like, what's going
Wow.
on? Again, there was some businesses. I think like the Verizon store, the security guard told everybody in the store, "Yo, look at what this guy is doing." Um,
Okay.
so people was coming out, everybody was recording, but I didn't know that my wife was recording also, and she
Okay.
was on Facebook Live. So I cut him. I cut maybe two other people, and then I said, "All right, that's enough." I
Okay.
did my due diligence for the day. So I, business as usual. Go home, get a good night rest. My cousin called me. It's like 3 in the morning. Now this is a cousin that I barely ever talked to, so I knew if he was
Okay.
calling, in my head, it's something serious. So
Okay.
he like, hey, and he's younger, so the whole viral thing, that word wasn't a big deal to me,
It
but to
didn't
him, it
resonate
was
with
like,
you.
right.
Okay.
So he was like, hey, I know we don't talk like that, but that video that your wife posted just went viral. And I'm like, what does that mean? He said, just go and look at the video. I went back to sleep. I'm like, whatever. So, um, when I finally woke, I had a million people was calling me through Facebook. I had text
Wow.
messages. So I'm like, what in the world is going on? So, one of the text messages was like, congratulations on being viral. Da, da, da. It was from like a close friend. I'm like, what is this viral thing? So I go look at the video, and yeah, it was 2.4 million views or something like that.
Overnight. You know what's funny? So there's a segment that we do on the podcast called the Generational Sip. And myself, I'm a Gen Xer, is with one of my village sisters who's a millennial, and my niece who is a Gen Zer. And we talk about the differences amongst the generations. And so I'm listening to you, and I can hear just by you sharing how old you were at that time that you're a millennial. And so I'm sitting here shocked a little bit because I'm thinking millennials, y'all love social media, right? You're very familiar. And to hear you say that, I wasn't even familiar with what the term viral was. So in 2017, were you someone who used Instagram? Did you use Facebook? Was it occasionally you had an account but didn't look into it? I'm curious to know
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I'm young, but I got an old soul. Like,
I
and,
get
and
it.
from Chester, I'm from the street. Like, my whole thing growing up was I don't want the attention. I was doing some things I shouldn't have been doing. So I don't want to
Okay.
be on Facebook, on Instagram, all out in the
Okay.
open.
I
I
get
mean,
it.
I had the accounts. I had the Black Planet way back in the day. I had all that stuff.
Also,
But
now
I
you're
just
telling
used
your
it
age,
for
Black
what,
Planet.
yeah, yeah, you know what I'm saying? So I just used it for whatever. More so just to browse to see what's going on. But it was very seldom that you'd catch me posting too much or anything like that.
Okay.
Um,
So
but
tell me, how does that work now? You wake up, you have your job, you wanted to do something just to give back because you see the homelessness situation in Philadelphia. And so from that to over 2 million views, what immediately changes in your life? How does Haircuts for Homeless develop?
yeah, I just went back to work. Like, it was like a wow.
Okay.
Especially when I went through like the inbox messages I was getting. And there was people from like Africa and China and
Wow.
all
Are
over
you
the world.
serious?
Yeah, it was
Wow.
like it was real. But for me, it was like, all right, that's cool. Cause I didn't understand the power of social media. Like it could be
Okay.
life changing. So I went back to work like nothing ever happened. But for the rest of that week, people would notice me going to work. But what really kicked off Haircut for Homeless was I never forgot the conversation me and Braden had.
Okay.
And that conversation, especially once the haircut was finished, like he was like a whole nother person. Um,
Wow.
so I'm saying to myself, I'm starting to hate this job because it's
Mhm.
not moving as fast as I wanted it to. Um,
Mhm.
and then I kind of feel like barbering was always a passion of mine, or people was a passion of mine. I didn't care about the barbering, but connecting with people was a passion, and then connecting with people who to really appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, there's no way I
Mhm.
could cut this
It's
one
a
person.
big difference, right?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
I just was
I
like,
always tell people I feel like hairstylists and barbers, that y'all are unofficial therapists, counselors,
absolutely.
somebody's priest or pastor.
Everything. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
um, I just was like, I gotta keep going with this. Not for the sake of wanting to keep going viral, but that conversation I have with him needs to be had with other people because I don't know what they might be going through, and that conversation could change everything.
Right.
So
Right.
I will continue to go out on my days off, which is like again twice a week.
Okay.
Whenever I have some free time, it got to the point where I was taking my clippers to work, and after work, I would find somebody, cut them real quick, go home, and it just start building that that everybody's
Right.
talking
Right.
now. Who is
So
this guy?
let me ask you this, because the vision, is a visionary. Sometimes I think about times in my life where I was not conscious of that at all. I just knew I had feelings about things, or I'd lay in the bed at night and I used to say to myself, like, why do I daydream so much? Or even throughout the day, it was just like I was equating it to daydreaming. So as this is happening and you're going to work and you're like, I'm going to do it more and I'm going to do it this, are you feeling like a vision is building at the time? Do you recognize that in yourself at the time, or it's just I just want to do it? It's just something I want to do.
That's it. To this
Okay.
day, it's just something I want to do. You know what I'm saying I never really took a everything happened so fast. Like
Okay.
from going viral to the news reaching out, from the news reaching out to Ellen reaching out to Rachel Ray. Like everything happened so fast. I never had a moment to sit down and say, okay, what is about to happen? You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? Where is this thing going? Like I said, to this day, 7 years later, I'm still trying to figure it out as I go because I never had that moment to just sit down, take a deep breath, and say, okay, let's really plan and map this thing out. But I think that it was supposed to happen that way. Like we spoke
I
before.
really like that. That's inspiring. That's why it was I'm so thankful to you that you're sitting here as the first guest of our visionary sips because I feel like that's what it's about, right? That's what it is. I have a conversation with friends all the time in my particular age group, and we talk a lot about technology and social media and things of that nature. And because we didn't grow up a certain way or have certain things or even come into our young adulthood with certain opportunities or paths, now sitting in it, I feel I'm guilty of overthinking sometimes, giving things way too much thought how it's going to look or how it's going to be. And this is the story that I wanted to share because it wasn't about you having a website and having an email address and I'm going to get this banging logo and do this. Like, just do the work. I remember I shared some remarks somewhere once, and what came over me was like, just move and do it. Just move and do it is so important because when you think about what you do, and for my personal belief, the purpose that we are all put on earth for, whatever that is not for our benefit, right? It's for the benefit of someone else. And the longer we dilly and dally and don't move in it and do it, it's affecting, right, how somebody else is directly going to be affected. So I really just want to salute you for that, for just moving and doing it. Salute to you for doing that. That's so important. At home, Haircuts4Homeless become a fit. When did that decision come that I'm doing this full time now? I'm not doing this job. This is where I'm gonna be at.
So there's one particular day. Now again, we probably I don't know, maybe a few months in,
Okay.
where again the momentum is building, people talking, but I'm still going to work. You know what I mean? And one day I woke up and I just felt uneasy. And I was like, I don't want to go to work. My wife was
Mm-hmm.
like, well, don't go, but this bill is due, this is due, you got that. So I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? All right, I'll push past, whatever I'm feeling, and I'm gonna go. I,
Okay.
I, I get to work and I'm there, and it's like I'm not feeling it, and all I could think about is I'm here doing this for money when I could be out there changing or saving or a life. You know what I
Right.
mean? And I still knew that it's stuff that had to be done. So, I have to be here. So I thought. But, as time was ticking, I just was like, I called her and said, I'm out of here. Like, we'll figure it out. Whatever happens, happens, but I'm out.
Okay.
And it was
And let
time
our
for my lunch
listeners
break.
know: Are you're a parent at this time? How many children? Four,
At
three,
this
four
time,
at that time.
so it was four, because we're a blended family.
Okay.
I had two, she had two.
Okay.
So it was four at the time. And I was like, I'm out. It was near my lunch break, and I left and never went back. They probably still waiting for me to come back. I walked out of there and I never looked back. I
That's
came
the
home.
epitome of just move and do it right there.
I mean, sometimes you got that feeling you
Yeah, I
can't
feel
you can't
you.
ignore it because in my mind I was blocking my blessing the whole time.
You felt like
I
it was a pushing. It was just the urging.
something
It
was
was just the
yeah something
urging.
was
Yeah.
pushing me to just to go. Now I didn't. And this is the blessing. I didn't move expecting. Like I didn't
Wait,
leave.
because we about to put that on a shirt or a cup. Say it again. You didn't what?
I didn't move expecting.
I
Like I
didn't
didn't
move
say,
expecting.
you know what?
Mm.
All right, I'm gonna leave this job and Haircut for Homeless is about to make me. I didn't even have a name. I wrote Haircuts for Homeless on a random board because that's what I was given. Like
Mm-hmm,
that,
mm-hmm.
and then it just stuck. You know what I mean? So I moved because I knew that there was greater somewhere. I just didn't know where it was at,
Ugh.
and it just so happened to be do this initiative. Um, but I left that day. I came home. I changed my clothes. I went out and I found as many people as possible, and I just was going all around the city, just cutting people's hair, cutting their hair, getting their stories. And for a long time, I didn't even record a lot of them. That's
Okay.
because people like, how did you cut 50,000 heads? It's probably 30,000. I never even posted on,
I
just
believe
because
you.
I was just into the
Especially if you
part
said
of
there was a line the first day.
it. I was just, cutting their hair. I wasn't utilizing the social media the way that I should have.
Mhm.
It wasn't in back then. It wasn't like a monetary thing like how it is now with YouTube and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It didn't really
Your
matter.
business model now in the sense because you want people we live in a time now where people want to see and touch, but it sounds like for where you were at that point in the journey, not that it's not still personal to you now, but it wasn't the mindset because it was very personal. Because the truth is you were going through your own transition. You were a father of four, a husband, the head of a household, leaving your job. I don't think the last thing you were
Right.
thinking about is taking pictures and videos. So I totally get it. I think sometimes we need that in life because I was talking with a friend the other day and she said that she wants to be more intentional about when she goes on vacation or does things with her family, she's like, I want to be more intentional about capturing the moment so I can look back and because I'm so in the moment that I don't capture it. And I said, and I'm just the opposite. I want to be intentional when I go away of being in the moment and not
Right.
worried about the picture or the
Everything.
video.
Yeah.
So I think it's a balance in our lives because it's sometimes, she's right. You want to look back and see these great memories that you had with your family, but there are also some moments, just be in it. Just
Just
be
right.
in it and don't
Absolutely.
worry about anything else. So I really can appreciate that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so how tell me, because everybody likes to, I say in this age of social media that we live in, we like to post all the glamorous, like wonderful parts, but in that first chapter of transitioning from working to now being out on this mission, not knowing, having some type of nonprofit business model of what you want to do, what are the challenges? Those are the things that I think are important for people to hear because there are a lot of valley moments
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
that kind of work. And it's not always mountaintops and what were some of those first uncomfortable moments that you had to work through?
Well, like you mentioned, I had a run in with the police. That was um, very uncomfortable, but at the same time, it lit a fire in me because I realized that everybody's not going to understand your vision,
Mhm.
and even if they understand it, that don't mean that they're going to agree or partner
Mhm.
with me in a
Mhm.
situation like this. Um,
Were you
Philadelphia,
at Broad and Walnut when they were asking you to move?
no, so I was at Eighth and Market
Okay.
um, at that moment, and I don't think that they had a real reason for wanting me to move. Their whole
Mhm.
thing was, we've covered this up for so long. Here you come trying to,
Expose
show,
it
yeah,
in all its
like,
glory. Right.
yeah. So if we could get this guy to go somewhere where a lot of people, and that's how the whole middle of the street thing happened. I kept saying
Mm.
to myself, I need to be where we can no longer keep it a secret.
Right.
So after Eighth and Market happened, the mayor actually said, he went public and said, I like what this guy is doing. We can
Mhm.
no longer be silent about this major issue in the city. So hands off.
Was
And
this Nutter or Kenny?
this is Kenny. Let him do what he do. But he, kind of told me like, listen, now I've given you the okay, but you don't really want to go toe to toe with the police. Like, it's certain things I know I can't control as a
Mhm.
mayor or not. So he was like, why don't you consider the courtyard of City Hall? Um, so, I went there for a while, but I'm a germaphobe. So I'm like, I don't know if it makes sense to cut hair here, and there's people that come out here, for lunch, and it's hair blowing everywhere.
Right.
Like,
Right. 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 Right.
it's not saying, I do have a little bit of respect for, people's space and things of that nature. So, City Hall, it was good, you know, but it still kept me in this bubble.
Mhm.
You only see me if you happen to pass
If
through
you have
City
to walk
Hall.
to City Hall, right.
So that's how one day I just was walking and walking and walking. Well, I think City Hall was closed. They had the gates closed, so I'm like, I don't want to just go home. I just start walking, and I ended up at Broad and Walnut on the sidewalk. And I cut a few people, and I think I was in front of the Bellevue. Their managers came out and was like, "Hey, we can't have you, doing that here. It's private property, yada yada." So I said, well, what about right there in the middle of the street? And they was like, "Have at it if you don't mind possibly getting hit." I didn't care, so
And
I
for
was like,
people
"All right, well,
listening or watching that aren't from Philadelphia, you are not on a huge that is
yo,
not a huge median that you're
nah."
standing on at all. It is very narrow on a very busy street. So that alone is just commendable. It's just commendable.
Well, for me, it was like, one is not as bad as people think, but I can sacrifice my life for 2, 3 hours out of my day if these
Mhm.
guys can sacrifice their lives every day, all day. It,
Right.
it, it won't hurt to, and it hasn't been, it's been a few car accidents from people riding by and looking, not
Right,
paying
right,
attention.
right,
But
right.
nobody said, it hasn't been nobody has gotten hit or anything like that. It's been fine. Um, but that's how I ended up in the middle of the street, and it's been extremely rewarding.
Okay.
One now again, now it's right. It's in the public.
Mhm.
Everybody that is somebody frequents that area.
Mhm.
Um, so I love it there. Like that's literally my home.
And it's like connected. It's like a connection because that's where you did the first haircut with Brendan. I'm sure that has special meaning to you. Did you
Well,
feel like
yeah,
you
a few
kept
blocks
being
away.
led back to that spot for some reason? Probably didn't even realize it at the time, but it's like
But
an attachment.
yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah. And so we in talking about being a visionary and maneuvering challenges and doing that. What is I love your humility. I think that is a sign of like a really great leader and visionary because I feel like they come synonymous hand in hand. I can't imagine a leader and not have any type of vision for something, but anyone who's listening and hearing your story, what is your encouragement to them in the challenges and the things that come about pushing forward to see it through? How important and beneficial is that to what their purpose is?
um, so you hit me with a hard one here. Uh, but I mean, I operate off of 3 P's, and
Okay.
not the PPP loan. This is my 3 P's is purpose,
Purpose
passion, and perseverance.
and
I mean,
perseverance. I like
you,
that.
you gotta find you gotta find what your passion is.
Mhm.
That's totally connected to your purpose, what you're here to do.
I agree.
And then you gotta persevere in order to accomplish or to operate in what it is that you're passionate about. Um, and for me, again, people are my passion. I just love
Mhm.
to connect with people. I love to make somebody's day to help. Um, that's my passion. That's my purpose. And had I not persevered, now I don't know if it would have been haircuts, but had I not just persevered in everything that I've dealt with just in life in general, I probably would have never found myself operating in my purpose. I
Yeah.
mean,
I
and
feel
find
like
out
that's
that
a component of it, right? The journey. There's so many things that we go through in
yeah,
seasons or chapters, if we look at our lives as books that we go through and experiences that we have that just don't make sense at the moment. And then sometimes it might be 5 years down the road and you realize you needed this to be able to be in this moment, to have grown to this moment, to be able to walk in or accept this moment. So I 100% agree with you. It's all a recipe. It's all a
yeah.
recipe. It's cooking up a meal. It's like
My
you just have
favorite
to be
scriptures:
patient.
all
Right.
things work together.
All
That's
things. All
all
things.
things work together. And even if it takes 5 years, if it's your purpose,
Mhm.
it'll it'll come full circle. I mean,
Right.
again, if you don't see it at the moment, you might have to go through everything else just to get you back to. I never thought that after quitting barbering that I would find myself barbering again, but with a whole nother mindset, a whole
Right.
nother, you know, everything's different. Like I think when I was barbering full time at a barbershop and I absolutely hated it, I
Mhm.
think God was saying I didn't want you to quit barbering. I just want you to change the client, change the
Ah,
clientele.
man.
So
That's awesome. That's
and now
awesome.
I do it for free. I before I did it only to make money, but
Right.
now to be a full time barber for free. That's how I know that my passion wasn't necessarily the barber. It was the people. It was
Right.
the makeover. You know what I
Right.
mean? Seeing the smiles is unbelievable when they get out the chair. They sit down with a frown. They get up
Yeah.
with a smile. I mean, and that alone, that's why
Yeah.
I do it. That's why I do
And
it.
I think I love that you say that. I want people to hold on to that. That's one of those gems from this interview that I want people to hold on to, because I think a lot of times we are absolutely using our gifts, but we're not using them in a manner that brings us happiness. And so then we throw the gift away, right? And try to get in something else. And sometimes for some of us, I'm one of those people probably. I've been in things and it just doesn't make sense, but it's like, no, I was operating with my gift, but just not in the right situation. So that's, for me personally, that's one of the reasons it's very important to have a very centered life, and whatever that is, if it's just your meditation, if it's prayer, if it's listening to God, whatever your higher power is, because that direction is really important, because you'll spend
Absolutely.
years out of balance for your purpose and passion, but it just wasn't in the right manner. For me, I was in corporate America, and using a lot of the gifts that I use now, but it didn't bring me joy to help a company that had billions of dollars keep their billions of dollars. You understand
Right.
what I'm saying? So it's
Right.
like, now
Right.
how do I take these research skills, these communication skills, these writing skills, these networking skills, and use them in a way that's beneficial, to the next person for my
Yeah.
passion. So I think that's something I really want people to hold on to that you said, because I think that's really important.
Absolutely.
With regards to the impact, yeah, it's not just the joy that you get from it, right? And the haircut that person gets, but you've had some impact from your work, like uniting families, somebody
Yeah.
finding a job. So tell us a story that you um don't mind sharing, that holds value to you, that's an example of that.
First story that comes to mind is a young guy. So I do a tour. Um, and I formed a team. We call ourselves the Compassion Crew. And from May to September, we travel to different states.
Okay.
So we had just kicked off the tour, I believe, in 2018. We were in Camden. Um, and I was live. I cut this guy hair. He kind of was giving a little bit of a story. He mentioned that his mom passed away. Um, he just kind of fell on hard times and so forth and so on. Now my mom knows not to ever call me if I'm online, like if I'm on live, because it disrupts her live.
Right.
But for whatever reason, she was blowing my phone up. So I finally answered, and I'm like, "Mom, what's up? What's going on?" And she like, "Don't let that guy leave." I can't remember what his name was. She's like,
Okay.
don't let him leave." And I'm like, "Why?" She said, "His aunt is on the live, and she's been looking for him for the last 4 or 5 years." So
What?
she said his name. My mom said his name, and I'm like, "Cody or whatever." I said, "You still here?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'm over here." Lucky crazy thing is he was sweeping up the hair. So I'm
I
like,
love it.
"You are Cody, right?" He like, "Yeah." I said, "You got an aunt named Michelle?" He
Mhm.
said, "Yeah." "How do you know that?" I said, "She's on the live and she wants to come pick you up." Um, so she came, and like I said, it was like one of the
Wow.
most emotional things that ever happened on this journey. But so he had a cell phone that went dead,
Mhm.
and literally because his appearance, nobody would give him the opportunity. He had no way to charge his phone, things like that. So his family thought he was dead. So when his aunt seen him on that live, it was
Wow.
so yeah.
That is
That was
amazing.
that was like probably the moment where I said, that's when I came up with it's bigger than a haircut.
It's
Like that's
bigger
what my
than a
last
haircut.
word
Yeah.
because You
And
know,
do you find that in this journey you need that? Because you get really discouraged. You could get really discouraged sometimes. And I feel like for me, there are just moments that remind me, like at that very moment, I know that I'm being reminded of why I do what I do. Because even though you're moving in your passions and your gifts, let's not let people think that that doesn't come with frustrations.
right,
And
right.
again, some of those valley moments sometimes, but I think those are the moments that ah, this is why I do what I do. And you
Yeah,
just
that.
need those. You need those reminders along the way.
Yeah, yeah. I don't. I won't say I get discouraged. I get tired.
Tired. Okay.
Because for me, 7 years, nonstop, every day, going out in the sun. I'm cutting 30, 40 people a day. Some
Mhm.
days, 10 on the low end, which is there's people that work in barbershops that don't even cut 10 people a day. So
Okay.
at every now and then I get tired. It takes a toll on my body. It
Okay.
takes me away from my family. We can't go on as many vacations because I was going full blast for the first maybe 4 years.
Mhm.
Even through the pandemic, I was out there. You know
You
what I
were.
mean?
I've seen you. I've
I
seen
was
you.
out there.
Mhm.
So I had to learn to, even though it's ministry,
Mhm.
I had to learn how to take time to focus on my temple. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Um, and then, even I went through some rough patches where, you know, like one particular situation, my car got repulled.
Okay.
So now I'm taking bags of clippers and a table and a chair, and I'm hopping on a train and catching Ubers.
Look at
Like
you.
it
Wow.
was, and I had to learn how to literally put smiles on faces with a frown on mine. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And that alone was it became tiresome. So,
Right.
um, but when you're operating in ministry and lives are at stake, you figure out how to again push past what you feeling, what you're going through, because
Mhm.
it's somebody else's life attached. I know I'll be fine,
Mhm.
but it's somebody else's life attached to what I do.
Right.
Whether if it's the haircut, the conversation, whatever it may be,
Mhm.
somebody's life literally is attached to that. So I had to learn how to, keep on pushing. So
I
I,
get that. You know, I have this conversation. I feel like it's very easy to have with the women in my life, but it's very hard. I'm glad that you opened up that door. It's very hard to have conversations. And I don't know if it's just the name, but it's very hard for me to have conversations with the men in my life that I love and respect about self care. Right.
yeah,
And self
yeah,
hurt. And I wish it was just something that, um, it was easy to talk about more. I'm not really sure why it's not. I don't know if it's just the term self-care and people think about manicures and pedicures, or if
right,
that
right,
is
right.
what it is. But I think even I like something you said, temple care. Temple care,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
temple care. Like, if we just said that, are you taking care of your temple? What kind of care are you giving to your temple? Because I feel like who can't, that's a reference to ourselves. I hope everybody thinks of themselves as a temple, a
yeah,
castle, a mansion, whatever it is. And
right.
so how do you take care of your temple? And so I'm proud of you for doing that. And is that something you're very conscious these days about doing and family time?
Yeah, these days, absolutely. Like I said, because I was running so hard, so fast, nonstop in the beginning, that when I would sit down, it was like I'm asleep. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And so
Mhm.
now the kids is like, "Where's dad? What's going
Mhm.
on?" Like,
Mhm.
he's not himself. They didn't understand it at the time. Like, I'm out there, I'm helping people. Like, they
Right.
still want their dad at the end of the day.
Mhm.
But then on top of that, it started taking a toll on my health, and
Mhm.
things of that nature. So it's like I had to I had to take a step back and just focus on
Yeah.
me for a moment, but not let me focus on me consume my mind and thinking that I'm not doing enough out there. Like
Yeah,
I
right,
had to
the
find a
balance,
balance.
right? I
I
love
had to
it.
find a balance. But
Mhm.
taking care, yeah, it's pivotal. I mean, I'm not getting
Yes.
no younger, so yeah, you gotta take care of yourself. You gotta. Sometimes it might just be just resting. It don't necessarily
Yes.
mean, but just taking a
Mhm.
deep breath and getting some rest. So
Mhm.
now I'm conscious of that, and I still go out Monday through Friday, but I might, one day do 3 hours, and the next day
Okay.
I might do six. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I'm just conscious of not trying to overdo it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And so how important has it been and pivotal to your success to have a supportive, spouse like Natasha?
Everything. Um, I think that because my wife, she works in cosmetology as well. She's a hairstylist.
Mhm.
She's a barber. She does everything. I think that the dope part about our union is she never said, "Let me step in and be like in the spotlight. Let's
Mhm.
share that." It's always been, I want to play the background. You go ahead and do you.
Mhm.
I'll push, encourage, pray, and everything else, and I'll be back here. And if you ever need me, you know what I mean. But yeah, she's like
It's
absolutely
beautiful.
everything. Like I said, I wouldn't be able to operate because me personally, I'm a hands-on guy. I
Mhm.
just want to go out and do the work.
Mhm.
But there's always some work that has to be done behind the scenes. I wouldn't be able to do it all. Like I would lose my mind if I had to do
Mhm.
paperwork or if I
Mhm.
had to interview people or whatever the case may be. She handles all that. So yeah, yeah, everything that I ever needed in a wife, that's who she is.
I think that's wonderful. Kudos to both of you. And so people might be surprised to hear. Now you've mentioned being on Ellen, being on Rachel Ray, but tell people who are listening, how did you end up getting married and being officiated by Philly's own Will Smith, and what ludicrous being the
My best
witness
friend.
to the union? We need the story today.
So I don't. That just happened again. So I mean, people reach out all the time, like via Instagram, and I don't always respond. 'Cause I don't know what if it's like some old fake stuff or whatever. But um, Will Smith has a production company called Westbrook Productions,
Hmm.
which is West Philly, Overbrook combined. Um, so when they first reached out and said they wanted to talk to me, I'm like, it kind of makes sense when I figured out the whole Westbrook thing. But immediately I Googled what was going on, Westbrook, yada yada. His name, all his credentials came up. So we spoke. I spoke to somebody from his team, um, and they just was giving me kudos and was like, we want to have another interview. And then they started asking me questions. I knew something was brewing. I didn't know to what capacity.
Okay.
Um, so um, that particular day, they called me on Zoom, said they wanted to do an interview, but they had me on hold for like 40 minutes, and I'm like, this is weird. And then he just popped up on the
He just
screen,
pops
and
up on the screen.
he just popped up like, "Yo, it was good." Yada yada yada. We busted up.
I
Um,
loved you and Natasha's reaction. It was so priceless.
it blew my mind. I'm like, is that really him? And she's like, yo, it's him. It's like, it was crazy.
It's like y'all were having this own conversation just amongst yourselves
Yeah,
while
like while he
you're
watching.
gonna Zoom in front of Will Smith.
Yeah, like because for me it was like, well, I still watch the Fresh Prince. Like
Hmm.
I never knew that this door will open. I would have the opportunity to sit with somebody I still watch to this day. Like
Right.
that was mind blowing to me. Now all of the gifts and stuff like that, I knew nothing about any of that. The whole wedding thing,
Now,
they just
the
asked.
wedding part come up. How did they was it something they asked you all during the interview process?
Yeah, they asked me like if you could do anything. Well, they asked me like about my wife and how
Hmm.
we met. And, like we could do anything. So we had a small wedding. So I told them I'm like I want to do like a bigger wedding, like get rid of old fairy tale wedding. And they must have just took a mental note of that, and
Okay.
that's how it came about. The ludicrous thing, like everything that happened, we knew nothing about.
So they Luda did Will say like, and we need a witness for the wedding, and then Luda just popped in.
So it was. He said something along the lines like, "You can't have a wedding without a best man." So we was like, "Who's the best man about to be?" And then he just popped up. Like, yeah, that was like probably one of the highlights of my career.
That was beautiful. And so the honeymoon that he gave you all, did you all take the children with you?
Yes, yeah, we went to Florida. Um, for I think
Kissimmee, Florida, right?
yeah, yeah, we went,
Okay.
yeah, and that was we had went to Kissimmee the year before,
Mhm.
um, but this one came with a whole lot of perks
I'm
and different
certain.
things. Um, so I wanted everybody to share that moment with us. So I even had my mom and dad flew down, my
Oh, look
grandma,
at that.
just so because that was like the moment where I was able to really enjoy or watch everybody else enjoy the fruits of my labor. I mean,
Okay.
so I
Okay.
wanted to share that with everybody, and
Wow.
it was dope, man. That was dope.
Well, let me tell you something that stands out about your personality is just the humility. And so for me personally, one of my prayers is always like for whatever I'm doing, it's nice to get kudos or to be recognized. I know my love language is affirming. I like to be affirmed,
Yeah,
but one of my prayers is always that I'm humble enough to do what I need to do, that I
yeah,
remain and have some humility about myself. And I just want you to know that is just something that shines. I've never met you personally. I don't know you and Natasha, but when I tell you I'm so proud of you guys, I just believe in it takes a village and just in the village spirit. I'm proud of my brother and sister and the work that you are doing. And I hope that you just continue to be encouraged along the path and keep making the mark that you do and just holds on to that humility. It's just a beautiful trait to have. And so for anyone who is listening, share with us what's next for Haircuts for Homeless and how can we support you and Natasha in the organization.
what you said, one, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. The humility comes from recognizing and understanding that this is truly no goodness of my own. Everything that has happened, all that I do, I strive to do, it literally comes from God. Again, this is ministry for me. This
Okay.
is there's no clout, no none of that stuff. There's
Mhm.
no ulterior motives. My purpose on earth is to serve, and if it's in this capacity or whatever capacity, that's what I aim to do.
Okay.
I'm just a catalyst. You know what I'm saying, and God has used me and is using me to shine a beacon of light on those who are often forgotten about.
Mhm.
Um, what's next for Haircut for Homeless? I don't know. The sky is the limit. I'll
I
never
believe
stop
it.
cutting hair.
I believe it.
I'll never stop going out and serving on Broad and Walnut. But my goal and my dream is to open a homeless shelter, resource center, called the Compassion Campus.
The
Um,
Compassion Campus. Okay.
Absolutely. So everything, as you can see, is about compassion. The Compassion Crew,
Mhm.
the Cuts of Compassion tour,
Mhm.
and I want to open a Compassion Campus, which will be a shelter slash resource center, um, for those who are willing and able to come, stay, um, maybe like a year or two program where they can,
Okay.
um, just get themselves back together again.
Mhm.
Right now, you're dealing with people that to them they're broken, and it's
Mhm.
our job to try to put the pieces back together. So there, they can take classes, they can we'll find them housing, we'll find them jobs,
Mhm.
everything that will help. Again,
Mhm.
like what it is that I do.
Mhm.
Um, and then they'll graduate and we'll uh play a part in getting them back into society again. So
Wonderful.
that's the dream for the next 5 years. That's what we'll be working on.
Okay.
um and then just continuing to work, man. We want to change the face of homelessness, how it's looked, how it's perceived. So and then the next question is how people can help. That's how. Help us change the face of homelessness. We got this notion that most homeless people, it comes from drugs or alcohol and things of that
Mhm.
nature. But that's not always the case. You have
It's
some people
not
that
at all.
literally just fell on hard times.
Yeah.
And if you want to call a spade, I was almost there. I could
Mhm.
literally be one slip up from being there,
What do people
you
say?
and
People are
whoever
one
else.
paycheck away, right? Could be one paycheck
Absolutely, and
away. Yeah.
that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Um, and we gotta remember that these are still people.
Mhm.
That they're not aliens or some foreigners or like there are still people. It's somebody's aunt, uncle, mother, father, and
Yes.
the only way to change how we perceive homelessness is for us to corporately get together and do our part. For me, it might be a haircut, but for somebody else, it may just be donating clothes or resources
Right.
or whatever. But collectively, we have to come together if we want to see change, and it starts with us.
Right. And how can people donate to Haircuts for Homeless?
Social media is probably the fastest and quickest way. All of my information is on my Instagram, so
Okay.
I
So
don't
there's a
really
link
like
in
to.
the Instagram account to donate.
Yeah, yeah, it's a link in my bio. Um, and I don't always like money is not a thing for me. Like, hey, I want to donate money. If you can donate time
Okay.
or even connections, if you know somebody
That can
who
help
works with
shelter
the
or help provide a job or
that's it.
help. Yes, we
You know,
understand.
work they may work at for the mayor or whoever. But let's just kind of just start connecting the dots, and from
Okay.
there, everything will work itself out. But
Yeah. Well, I'm wishing you all the best, but I have my tea here, so we're going to cheers it up for the first visionary sip. I appreciate you, brother.
absolutely.
Joining me on this journey. I look forward to a lot more conversations like these. I hope that you thoroughly enjoyed. I hope that you were inspired and encouraged. Remember, life is too short for bad vibes and bad drinks, so keep sipping, keep chatting, and always remember life is a journey, but it's better with a sip and a chat. Until next time, cheers.